Hi, it's Mayor Walter Sendzik, and welcome back to Our Home with Mayor Sendzik. It's 2019, and I hope you had a wonderful New Year's. It's an opportunity to look at the next year with optimism and set some goals, things that you want to achieve. And I want to say first, thank you for all the folks who came out last year during the elections and who voted me back in as mayor of this city. I'm proud and honored to be mayor of St. Catharines. Our Home with Mayor Sendzik is about shining a light on the amazing things that are happening in our community. It's also about shining a light on people who are making a difference. And that's why I think Our Home with Mayor Sendzik is a special part of Cogeco Television here in Niagara, because it is that opportunity to learn more about the city, learn more about the projects that are being undertaken, and really come to a better understanding of what makes St. Catharines a great place to live, work, and raise a family. There are really some special things that are going on when you look at the GO train that's now come to our community. After a lot of effort from a lot of people, we now have daily GO commuter service. We also have activity on the old General Hospital site. The demolition has started, and so you're going to see a lot of activity take place over there. In Port Dalhousie, you're going to start to see the work at the Rankin project. You're going to start to see work at the Lincoln Fabrics project. And so you're going to start to see cranes in the air. At the old Hotel Dieu site, Seasons is ready, and they're going to be digging the foundation and building the buildings up there. It's for affordable senior living in our community. So you're starting to see the built form of St. Catharines come up. And as part of that, there's the optimism, it creates momentum, and it's also, there's a part of our city that I believe is becoming even more compassionate than it's ever been. And so today's guest, we have Janet Handy here who's joining us today. She has written a book called The Secret Tribe. And Janet and I have come to get to know each other over many years, or the last number of years, and Janet is with the Kristen Child Advocacy Center here in St. Catharines. And where we've been working on is to get more funding for the center. It's a valuable resource in our community, and it helps children who have suffered trauma, who have gone through a traumatic experience where the police have had to get involved, and the Kristen Child Advocacy Center is a place, it's the center place where kids can go, where children go, where all the services that would be required for that child who's experienced trauma comes to the center. And it was a really unique center that was created a number of years ago, and we'll get more into the details. But it's also important to create sustainable funding for it. So we've been working with the provincial government to try to get them to see that sustainable funding for centers like this across Ontario actually helps the child, because it puts the child at the center of how the services that go in, the supports that go in to help a child who's gone through trauma. The centers are that important piece of a very complex puzzle. And so I've come to learn a lot about the Kristen Children's Advocacy Center, and a lot of folks in our community have really rallied around the center, but we're going to continue to push for the provincial government to create sustainable funding for the center. But I want to talk to Janet, and Janet has a wonderful history working with children in trauma. She is from the Anglican Church. She's been ordained in the priesthood, as well as from Ryerson University. She's got her education from Ryerson University, and you've been in our community for a while now. So Janet, tell us a bit more about the Kristen Child Advocacy Center, because you've really elevated the center and the services that it provides in our community.
Well, you've said it perfectly, Walter, and by the way, thank you for having me here.
No
It's
problem.
just great. The center puts children and youth first, children who've experienced abuse or there's a suspected abuse, brings the police, child welfare, and family counseling center, mental health around them, supports them in a joint investigation process, and then medical support and any other kind of follow-up trauma reducing programming can happen there when the partners bring them in. So it really puts this child at the center of everything we do, and it reduces the trauma associated with disclosing abuse itself. So a system that's meant to make it easier for children to disclose abuse is really consolidated. And before there was a CAC, a child might have to repeat that experience up to 7 times with siloed services. So now they're all together, and they come together to do joint investigation in a way that just reduces that trauma and leverages immediately the child's resilience. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key understandings is that when you, for those who are watching at home, when you think of a child who's gone through a trauma situation, and then having to go from location to location to location to retell that story, that incident, that has an impact on a child's capacity. And the center is one of the first centers of its kind in Canada, was it not?
In Ontario, and the second, I think, across Canada. There was one that was similar out in Alberta, the Zebra Center. But not, it was a forerunner really to the CACs that exist now. We were the first standalone community-supported, generated agency, CAC in Canada. Yeah.
And how are you funded right now?
Well, we fundraise all the time. Yep. We have a third of our budget is supported by our partners, very generously so. Another third is from writing grants and time-specific, project-specific, time-limited grant applications for different parts of programming that we might want to test out or try. And then and the other third is from the community, and the community has been extremely generous, both from foundation, family supports, Niagara Community Foundation, individual donors, you name it. And we do quite a few events during the year.
Right. And at a certain point, what I'm hoping for is folks will go to the website, look at some of the events that are coming up. And
an event calendar there for them. And
we'll be able to participate.
Starting to plan already this year.
Yes, you are. And I got to say, the volunteers and the board put on very good events that draw a lot of community support. And I want to talk a bit more, because we're going to lead into your book, The Secret Tribe. You're an educator. You've taught child, adolescent, and family development at Ryerson University, and you've worked with survivors of sexual abuse for over 30 years. You've also co-authored and authored reports and training materials, and so it leads to your memoir, because there's the clinicians out there, the people who are educators, academics, who write about it but don't have what I would say the first-person experience. And what I didn't know was what I learned from the memoir. And the memoir, it's called The Secret Tribe. And it is a powerful insight into your own personal experience. So tell us a bit about why you decided your experience, your personal experience. Why did you decide to put it into a book form?
Well, one of the things is I wanted to help other survivors look at our patterns and our ways of coping, particularly how we leverage our own resilience in the face of abuse. It does take in kind of 30 years of knowledge now. I'm long enough in the tooth now, I can look back and talk about this without being re-traumatized myself, which is a big piece of telling your story and being able to talk about it. It also is an appeal, I think, to our present point in history about child abuse and how really hidden and widespread it is. We're talking about 1 in 3 Canadians. Recent reports would say they've been abused as a child, either physically, sexually, psychologically. We have a 233% increase in child pornography images and on the internet since 2006, I believe. That's a huge increase. We have some pretty serious problems with human trafficking, and we're also border cities, so this is all really critical stuff. And we can't ignore it any longer. I think what's happening, as I see it, is that our social service system is burdened by unresolved, untreated trauma.
Right.
And so down the road, if we don't deal with it well in the beginning, down the road we have great expense, both personally and for the system that we live in.
And I think that's one of the insights that I took away is the lived experience of the trauma. And you captured through your own experience the origin of the trauma and then how that trauma wove its way through your life. You talk about suicidal thoughts in here. You talk about the impact on you as a individual, how you see yourself. It's heavy stuff.
Right.
But I think it's important for more people to learn about the lived experience from someone, to have a better understanding of how trauma leads to. And you were talking about in Guelph, as you were going through for your divinity.
In Toronto, yeah.
In Toronto, you went through the reformatory where you were working with young men.
Yes, the Guelph, yeah.
And
we call it prison, but
prison.
Guelph
Call it prison.
Reformatory, yeah.
And you
My
were talking
chaplaincy
about
training, yeah.
how you went back to, you were understanding their origins of their trauma, how these young men were from an early age abused through violence or whatever means, and that led to anger in their teens, then that led to violence in their criminal behavior. And it was I believe you blend the lived experience with that more academic understanding of it. And so how difficult was it for you to write the book?
Parts of it were very difficult. I was surprised myself at how difficult, because when you live with it, one of the interesting things about living with it is that we're very used to living with it as survivors. We have got all sorts of ways of living with it. And some of it is you deaden a lot of your experience. So once I wrote it out in full, I was quite touched by it myself to really look back and say, well, look what you survived. Isn't that great?
Right.
You know, and I think that that's an experience for anybody who looks back and says, I came through that. That's fantastic. I came through that. So I think that's part of my experience. The other is that it's hard to write about these things because you're always weighing, you know, not sharing all the gory details that's going to traumatize the reader with some really valuable information that they need to be able to see what the healing structures are around those trauma experiences.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I was left with is that path, that the trauma took you on a path, and then at the end talking about how you've overcome and some of the takeaways that people, the reader and others who have suffered trauma, and bringing it back to the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center, that gives you a unique perspective on the work of the center.
I mean, I would say a bulldog for centers because of my own experience. This just wasn't available. Right. And we know that trauma can layer on itself over and over again if it's not treated in the first place. Right. It also has a permanent, we know so much more about trauma now, like there's some permanent changes to the brain. And how we cope with that is probably as different as there are survivors. But it's important for our society, our clinicians, our healers to know what that's about. Right. And so the earlier we can deal with this, the faster we can deal with it. I really believe you can change the trajectory of a child's life if you deal with it well at the beginning. And that's what a lot of people are starting to talk about. So you can get this at Chapters, you can get this? You can get that online at Amazon, Friesen Press bookstore.
Right.
It's in a number of online Barnes & Nobles, Indigo chapters, all online.
So I want to thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you.
I do want to thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. It is amazing work,
Thank
and
you.
I want you to keep it up, and you know that the community is behind you 100%. And for those at home, I want you to go out and look for The Secret Tribe by Janet Handy. I think it's a useful tool for a lot of folks, and it'll help, and I think it'll be one of those resources that will be helpful for a lot of folks. So if you get an opportunity, check out The Secret Tribe. So we're going to take a bit of a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking with some folks in our community that are doing a art affair coming up, and you won't want to miss that. Hi, and welcome back to Our Home with Mayor Sendzik, and after the break, we now are going to be talking about art. And when you think of St. Catharines, when you think of what's happening downtown, arts are alive in our community, and we see a lot of the performing arts taking place at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, but the visual arts has been an important part of St. Catharines for many, many years. And joining us today, we have two members of the St. Catharines Art Association. We have Nancy Haskell, who is an artist in our community, as well as Nancy Sauder, Brenda Sauder. Here's where we go, because we have two guests now, and so Nancy and Brenda Sauder. So I want to talk a bit about the St. Catharines Art Association, because it has been around for a while. It has a long history in our community.
1951.
So that's the interesting fact. 1951 is the St. Catharines Art Association formed. So when we think about today, and there's been a lot of emphasis placed on art in our community through the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, Arts Lives Here is the banner that we talk about. The visual arts has a strong root that goes way back.
A very strong root.
Tell us a bit about the association and the history.
The association is, as Brenda said, has been since 1951. I do believe I belonged to it many, many years ago. Well, not many, many years ago, but a few years ago. And then I was away from it for a while, and I rejoined about 5 years ago now. The Art Association has met at Rodman Hall, many, many places. Right at the moment, we are meeting. I believe we just found a new spot, and it is in a local church. We meet once a month. It's the idea of the Art Association, of course, is to promote art in general. Mm-hmm. And we, at our meetings, we have people coming in, artists coming in, giving us their techniques. Trades come in and show us what the new and available art products are. The association at the moment has about 100 members.
Wow, okay.
And we're always looking for new members. We, if you go on our website, stcatharinesarts.com, and it'll give you information about the events that we are in. We are a self-funded organization, so obviously things like the art auction and various art shows are one of the ways that we do have to be able to keep our finances in good shape.
Great. Now, Brenda, in terms of when you think about art in our community, we have the Marilyn I. Walker School of Fine and Performing Arts, which does have the visual arts as a very important component of it, and the next generation of artists. So the Art Association also supports the next generation of artists who are emerging. How do they do that?
Yes, we've started up a scholarship fund for the graduating high school students from all the different high schools in St. Catharines. That we have their art teachers pick the student that they feel is going, was the top in the class, but also is completing their art education on, when they leave high school. So as long as they're going off into the arts, we have a scholarship for them. And we started it at the same time that we started the St. Catharines Art Association's Art Lovers Affair that we're doing, the big art show.
Nice segue into a discussion that we'll be having about a wonderful event coming up.
Yeah, so it was one of the reasons that we, started this event. I mean, the main reason is still to show our artists' artwork. I mean, the artists love having these shows because it really helps promote their artwork, but having a cause is also great too. The interesting thing was that the St. Catharines Art Association played a big part in attaining Rodman Hall back in the days. So,
right. And when you look at the benefactors and people who really created the Rodman Hall space, that was led by artists and people in the community who wanted us to have a place for the visual arts.
Yes.
So the reason why I wanted to make that connection, because this is how many years have you been doing because we're going right into the event now, the Art Lovers Affair at Herndon Estates Winery?
This is our 4th year.
This is the 4th year.
Yeah.
4th year, and so I've been, I believe, to the last 3, and it is outstanding.
I think the association has done, the girls that have put it on have done a very, very good job, and it's a lot of work.
Yep.
And we have sponsors, so the community sponsors very well. Our largest sponsor is Toyota.
Yep.
And they have every year come up handsomely helping us.
3 days.
3 days.
So take me through the event. We'll start Nancy, and then we'll go to Brenda.
3 days. The show runs from this year runs from February the 8th to February the 10th. The show and sale. There's absolutely no charge. It's open to the public from 8 till 5, I believe it is.
Okay.
And on the 9th is our actual Art Lovers auction.
And that is the Saturday night?
That is the Saturday evening.
Okay.
And that Saturday evening, we have entertainment. There's food and wine. It's connected with the fee of getting into it, of course. And it's at Hernders Winery.
Yep.
The whole function's at Hernders.
Yep.
Yes. And that evening, the doors would, the Saturday evening of the auction, the doors would open at 6:30 so that people can come in and peruse the work that is up for auction. And then I believe the auction is going to be starting about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And then it's also, so it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Yes, the show itself is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday night's the big event. And now I want to, because it's wonderful that you've brought some artwork that will be up for auction at the event. And Nancy, you have one of your pieces right behind us.
Yes, that's one of my pieces, and it's the title of that is "I Heard You."
That's good.
I seem to have got into the face mode. I can't imagine why, but I seem to have got into the face mode when I like these little attitudes that my girls have. Which I think every woman should have a little bit of attitude.
Yes, you're right. And you've got some portrait, you have other pieces of artwork from other artists, you've got a beautiful forest scene, and then you have looks like more of a Mediterranean Moroccan scene.
I'm going to tell you the name of that one.
Yeah, Brenda, give me a...
Actually, this is by Bev Seddon, this one, and
Yep.
it's called The Bargain Bazaar. Her parents traveled a lot in their lifetime, and she's honoring her father's photography by painting one of the shots that he had taken in a place called Chefchaouen. It's the blue city of Morocco. So it's quite an interesting story on that.
And then the forest scene?
And the forest scene is by Joyce Pierce, and it's called River Birches. And Joyce does a lot of her paintings just sort of from memories. It's not a specific location or anything, it's just stuff that she remembers and she just starts painting and it just comes to her. So
how many
very
pieces?
interesting.
How many pieces would you have? This is just a wonderful sample. How many pieces will you have at the art affair?
The auction itself, we have 15 pieces.
15 pieces for auction.
For the auction, but throughout the show, oh gosh, the actual number of paintings, we have 42 boards, and on a board, a member could put either one big painting or up to 4 little paintings. So there's that. Then we have a silent auction, which we have 51 paintings. So there's a lot of art.
So
a lot of art.
Fun fact is I've gotten 2 pieces of artwork myself.
I remember
over the
last
past
year
3
you
years.
one up.
And I think what is really important for the public to come out and understand is one of the unique things about coming to this show is that we can put on our walls a poster from a store, I won't say which store, or we can actually have original artwork that's unique to our space, that isn't replicated 1,000 times, that you go to your neighbor's house and they have the exact same image. And I think that's what the unique thing is about the art affair, is that it allows people from our community to have artwork on their walls that are unique. And it's not, people have this idea that it's expensive to buy artwork.
I was just going to address that. You can spend as much money or as little money as you want, I suppose, on art, but there's certainly at this show there would be many, many pieces that are going to be very affordable. Because even if someone goes out and buys a poster, you still have to frame it in some manner, and before you know it, you're up to $100, $150. And definitely there are going to be many, many very nice pieces, less than the figure I'm going to give you, but you'll be able to buy beautiful art from $200 to $500 very easily.
And it goes to the members in our community.
That's correct. That's correct. It gives the artist an added reason to paint, as well as the fact that a portion of the funds does go back to sustain the St. Catharines Art Association.
Right.
I had mentioned earlier about membership. Our membership for the Art Association is only $35 a year, and we do take student members, in other words, people that are going to Brock or even people that are in high school and doing art. They could also become a member, and I believe that fee is $20 for the year. So I think it's very reasonable.
Well, I can say as an attendee of the Art Lovers Affair, Herndon sets it up in a very beautiful way. Your volunteer hours go in. Takes a long time to set up all those boards. But I found myself, I could spend 2.5, 3 hours just slowly going through the different spaces that contain the artwork. And so talk about, it's not just the painted, there's photography that would be in there?
Yes, that's right, there is photography.
So there's photographers that would come, there's people who paint, and it's the different styles. There's abstract, I remember last year there was abstract artists that are painting, there's realists. So you have a good cross-section
Very
of talent.
diverse, very diverse of section. And even in the art auction itself, it's 15 pieces, but they are all really quite diverse. So I'm sure there's something there for everyone's taste.
So tickets for the Saturday night are how much?
$45.
$45.
$50 at the door.
And where do you get them in advance?
You can get them at Fig Street
Yep.
in Thorold. You can get them at Framecraft. You can get them at Hernders as
Okay.
well. And you can get them online at stcatharinesart.com.
Okay.
And or you can call me.
Call Brenda.
I'm the ticket holder.
And most important, I know that e-transfer is the big thing these days. We do have an e-transfer site. It's events at St. Catharines.
stcatharinesart.com or events
Yes.
at St. Catharines
Events at
Art.
St. Cat-
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
then they could pick their tickets up, rather than having to go somewhere, they can pay for it in advance, pick the tickets up at the door.
Thank you very much, Nancy and Brenda. This is an important event. The association you have is wonderful. It's the vitality of art in our community. The Art Association is such an important part of that. Keep up the great work. And I look forward to seeing many of you come out to Herndon Estates for a very special event, the Art Lovers Affair. I hope you've enjoyed the first show of Our Home with Mayor Sendzik of the 2019 season. Stay tuned for many more stories about our city of St. Catharines. And until then, take care.